You guys don't need to worry about me getting revenge from Diddy. I've got 3 moves that make sure he'll never be able to come after me or my family. First, I personally reached out to the victims' legal teams. The real reason he's not getting out is those buried cases behind the scenes. I provided legal funding for 7 victims who had been silent for years and brought in the top criminal attorneys in the country. Second, I bought up every potential post-release business deal he had lined up. I planned this 2 years in advance, so by the time he got sentenced and still had hope of getting out, every partner had already cut ties with him. Third, I don't just have evidence, I've got backups. This is an entire minefield that's been buried for 20 years. I uncovered every secret from the last 30 years. With testimonies from the victims, we interviewed over a dozen people he tricked, threatened, or violated. You think that's harsh? No, he destroyed other people's lives for decades. I'm just making sure he spends a few extra years in prison for it. I'm not afraid of his people, not afraid of his threats. I know he's still in there fantasizing about a comeback, but the truth is, he's never coming.
4 years. The industry brushed it off like background static. Clips got laughed away, moments overlooked, real questions never chased down. But now, with 50 Cent's new documentary hitting the scene, the timeline is under a microscope. What once lived in the rumor category is being dragged straight into the light. At the core of this story is Diddy, a power broker who shaped careers, and Justin Bieber, a child star dropped into that world way too early. This ain't about viral clips or internet chatter. It's about power, silence, and how long truth can stay buried when too many people benefit from not looking too closely. 4 years, Justin Bieber's rise was sold as a modern fairy tale. A kid with talent, discovered early, lifted straight into superstardom. But sitting underneath all that success was an uncomfortable reality. A minor moving through adult power structures with no visible safeguards. Archival footage and old interviews show him placed in rooms he shouldn't have been in.
Is this real life? I feel crazy. The world is spinning around me. What's happening? You have 4 eyes. I have 2 fingers.
Spaces where access, influence, and fame mattered more than age-appropriate boundaries. For a long time, those moments just floated around quietly. They were dismissed as quirky celebrity culture. Nothing more, nothing less. Nobody really pressed the issue. Nobody asked the hard follow-up questions. Instead of being treated as institutional risk, it got normalized. The bigger picture here isn't one moment or one clip. It's about how an entire industry learned how to look away. When childhood gets traded for access, somebody always pays a price. And the real question becomes, who is actually held accountable for that cost? You got people inside the industry who've been saying for years what's really going on. Allegations floating around that never quite make it to daylight. Whispers about underage situations, power abuse, and silence. And now the federal lens is starting to focus in on it. At some point, the question turns into, when does somebody finally come forward? Because the information being there, alleged information, but no witnesses stepping up. Nobody willing to put their name on it. Nobody willing to cross that line. Then you start hearing about mysterious deaths tied to this orbit. Shakur Stewart, gone, labeled self-inflicted.
Yeah, so as soon as you turn 16, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna let you rock this every time you come to LA. Yeah, this will be yours. So every time you come to LA, it's a little dusty, but you know, come get the front shot of this.
Man.
Turn that out. Minute.
Woo. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna be driving this next year.
Yeah, when you get 16, you come down there, you gotta, you know, wear your seat.
I mean, I'm 15. You could ride in the passenger seat. I got my permit. Not yet.
No.
All right, 16.
You're not ready.
16.
Let's slow down. Let's slow down, Jess.
Okay.
Let's slow down. Okay.
One step at a time.
But yeah, the keys is yours when you get 16. You're good to go.
I'm good to go.
Yeah.
All right.
Then when you get 18, you get the house. You get the mansion.
Okay.
Despite having everything to live for, Kim Porter, other incidents, cars blowing up, threats behind the scenes. That's when people start saying, Somebody got to intervene. If it's not the state, then it has to be the feds. Because you can't just let this keep rolling unchecked forever. Somebody got to put a stop to it before more damage is done. He lucky, in a twisted way, to still be alive to face consequences, to have a chance to change, repent, and confront what's been done. Now when minors get brought up, people immediately drag Justin Bieber into it. And that's because those old videos with Diddy don't age well at all. What once looked like mentorship now feels suspect in hindsight. 50 Cent has always positioned himself as an outsider to Diddy's private world, claiming awareness without participation, warnings without proof. For years, that got written off as industry beef and rivalry. But now the context has shifted completely. Legal pressure, cultural reevaluation, and timelines being re-examined. That doesn't automatically validate every claim that was ever made, but it does force people to rethink intent and early warnings. Sometimes the alarm goes off long before the evidence becomes public, and it's easy to ignore when the messenger is inconvenient. How many early red flags get missed because people don't like who's talking? That's the uncomfortable part nobody wants to sit with. We all saw the clips, we all heard the jokes, we all laughed it off. But now, watching it back, it hits different. A young artist being folded into grown man rooms and grown man conversations.
Amazing. So where are we off to now?
Where would you like to go?
I mean, wherever you want to go. Where are we going?
So check this out, yo. Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, like, you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher.
Signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So yeah, and we gonna go full crazy.
Going crazy.
Crazy.
I'm taking this out tonight.
What you want to do? What you want to do over the next 48 hours?
48 hours. Let's go. Let's just go get some girls. Let's go get some girls.
Man after my heart. That's what I'm talking about.
Being handed status before he even had agency. Diddy's influence was never limited to music alone. He controlled access to rooms where careers either took off or stalled out. Proximity to that power meant opportunity, leverage, and protection. Justin Bieber's closeness to that influence reflected an industry reality. Success flowed through gatekeepers, not transparent systems. And once you were inside, the rules were different. When you hear the joke about Bentleys and Lamborghinis, it sounds harmless. But when you zoom out, it paints a bigger picture. A child star surrounded by unchecked power and blurred boundaries. An industry that benefited too much to ask questions early. Now the timeline is being pulled apart piece by piece. And what stayed hidden for years is finally being forced into the light. That Lamborghini question right there says a lot by itself. Because it wasn't just about a car, it was about access. He had the Lamborghini for a day or two, had access to the house. And he knew better than to be talking crazy about Big Brother Puff on national TV. Everything ain't for everybody, and everything ain't meant to be said out loud. That's how you know there were unspoken rules in play. Then the conversation takes an even stranger turn. People start asking, do you believe a guy on the tape is white? If it's bigger than Diddy, more powerful, and not any of the usual names. Then folks start narrowing it down, saying he was young too. A young A-lister, bigger than Diddy, not black. At that point, people start saying, man, who else could it even be? That's when the Bieber name starts getting whispered. And everybody immediately says, I hope it ain't Bieber. I really hope it's not Justin Bieber. For real. But if they saying the guy was young, A-list, and more celebrity than Diddy, and is not black, the list gets real short, real fast. Allegedly, of course, nobody's saying anything with certainty. When the news first broke about Diddy and another man, people asked if that surprised him or not.
I'm good. How are you?
All right, young brother, everything's good?
Everything's
Selling
great.
out arenas and everything? Starting to act different, huh?
No,
you ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean,
I mean, you try to get in contact with me, through all my, partners and whatnot. But you never really got my number, so.
Right. Okay.
My number?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you my number.
Yeah.
It's 555.
Yes. Okay.
5555.
Okay. 55. Y'all heard that?
Yeah.
Okay, well I'm here to because you've been a big supporter of mine, all jokes aside. This right here is my young brother right here. He's been a big supporter of mine. My album's coming out, and we got the crew going around now. You in New York City, and we got the Dirty Money crew. And we wanted to make you an official member of the Dirty Money crew.
Are you
all right?
serious?
There you go.
That is
Justin
that
Bieber.
Is swag.
Is it your swag? And then you got to do the swag walk too.
Okay.
And the response was honest. A lot of this caught me off guard. Some of it surprised me. Some of it didn't. Because I knew Puff. I knew him before all the name changes. Before Love, Brother Love, and back to Diddy again. The bigger concern isn't just what happened behind closed doors. It's why there was no public oversight when it mattered most. When career advancement depends on proximity to power, boundaries get blurry. In that kind of system, who really has the power to say no? And who pays the price when they do refuse? That's the part nobody likes to talk about. Long before Justin Bieber was in the picture, Usher told his own story. He publicly described being placed into Diddy's world as a teenager, later saying it exposed him to adult realities way too early. That matters because it establishes a pattern, not just rumor. When the same pathway repeats with different kids, coincidence feels weak. At that point, it starts looking like systemic continuity. Trust gets passed down without reform or accountability. If discomfort was acknowledged once, why was the system left untouched? Why was the same environment available for the next child star? Those questions never really got answered. Instead, people laughed it off, minimized it, moved on. Until now, when the timeline is being reopened. A lot of this stuff is shocking, but it's not unheard of. You hear wild things all the time in these circles. Whether you internalize it or just brush it off, that's another story. But let's really keep it a buck for a second. When did it become normal to eat food off a naked woman? When did this kind of behavior become acceptable culture? These dudes popping pills, moving reckless, no boundaries. You got other celebrities in questionable situations too. And as scrutiny around Diddy increased, something else stood out. A lot of people who used to be close suddenly went silent. Meanwhile, 50 Cent got louder and louder with his commentary. That contrast tells you everything you need to know. Speaking out risks relationships. Silence protects them. Loyalty starts looking a lot like self-preservation. It's not always cowardice. Sometimes it's calculation. An ecosystem where truth competes directly with survival. When silence becomes the safest option, accountability gets crowded out. That's a real dilemma the industry is facing right now. Then the conversation shifts to Justin Bieber again. People asking, is he a victim in all of this? Reports coming out saying he's selling his entire catalog. People saying he's broke, which don't even make sense on paper. Because he didn't have to be broke at all. Somebody benefited while he paid the cost. Allegations start flying about who had their hands in his pockets. Claims that guardianship and control shifted in ways that hurt him. That after certain deals, he was never really the same. And the money flow told a story of its own. Again, these are allegations, not convictions. But the pattern being discussed makes people uncomfortable for a reason. He's still out here publicly embarrassing women right in front of their men. Men who pay for tickets, sitting there watching their relationships get disrespected. People joke about it, but that behavior been sending folks straight to divorce court. And the wild part is, he don't even want them women like that. He's not chasing them. He's not interested in them. He doing it strictly for control, for ego, to disrupt and destroy bonds. Justin Bieber has never come out and directly accused Diddy of criminal activity. But his later interviews tell a much heavier story beneath the surface. He talks about anxiety, losing control, emotional collapse at a young age, being overwhelmed, surrounded by grown adults with competing interests. No real tools to protect himself, no room to process what was happening. That record alone complicates any simple, clean narrative. I remember watching that interview where Justin talked about Billie Eilish. He was almost in tears, voice shaking, saying he just wants to protect her. He said he wants to keep her safe from what this industry does to kids. And that moment hit different, because it came from lived experience. He knows what happens to young stars behind the scenes. Just like people knew what was happening with Millie Bobby Brown and Drake. These aren't movie villains. This is real life, real industry behavior. Real street-level power dynamics dressed up as celebrity culture. People act like it's entertainment, but it's not fictional at all. It's monsters hiding in plain sight, protected by status and silence. That's why those comments don't come from nowhere. They come from someone who's seen too much too early. Then the conversation shifts into something deeper, almost spiritual. Jermaine Dupri once said R&B lost power because kids stopped going to church. People laughed it off, but there's truth buried in that idea. R&B was born from gospel and soul blended together. That's why Ray Charles caused controversy mixing sacred sounds with secular music. They wanted separation, labels of good and evil, when reality isn't that clean. The truth is, trauma doesn't always come with a headline accusation. Sometimes it shows up years later as damage without a name. Anxiety, addiction, emotional collapse, broken identity. If harm is systemic, why do we demand one single allegation to believe it? Why does suffering only count when it's packaged for court? That's a human question, not just a legal one. Now here's where things get even darker, and this part shook people. A witness who testified before the grand jury reportedly turned over 8 videotapes, allegedly containing celebrities at these so-called freak-off parties. He claims these tapes came from a close friend of Kim Porter. Tapes Kim Porter was supposedly holding onto as leverage against Diddy. And some of the names he mentioned are ones we've heard whispered for years. According to Courtney Burgess, who spoke on the Too Strong YouTube channel, he claims he saw Justin Bieber on one of those tapes, allegedly appearing underage at the time. He also claims Usher appeared on the tapes and was clearly underage. And that part hit even harder, considering rumors Usher introduced Bieber to Diddy. Again, these are allegations being discussed, not proven facts. When asked directly if kids were involved, his answer was chilling. If Justin was older, he wasn't supposed to be. If Usher was older, well, Usher was definitely young. That's a statement that made people sit up straight. Because at that point, it stopped sounding like coincidence and starts sounding like a pattern people don't want to confront. All right, so boom, let's slow this down for a second. He starts talking about the shower part, saying the whole club was basically in the bed. Looked like they all came back from an event, a party, something like that. Not no random hangout, but an after-hour situation with no boundaries. That visual alone made people uncomfortable, and for good reason. Because that's not normal behavior, no matter how you dress it up. Then he goes on to bring up Danny Boy being in one of these videos. Says Danny Boy was there with Mary J. Blige and did it together. And Danny Boy himself has admitted that when he was just 15, Mary J. allegedly flew him out to New York and he slept over. Now, once Diddy's story officially entered federal court, things shifted. The conversation moved from rumor into documented legal process. Charges, filings, verdicts, appeals, all of that narrowed what could be said publicly. But at the same time, it expanded what people could question institutionally. Courts deal with specific actions, not the culture that enables them. And that's where the gap really shows. Because legality does not equal morality, and acquittals don't erase damage. When a courtroom closes a case, does that really end the conversation? They circle back again like, Jay? Danny Boy, right? People saying they've heard the name before but been out the loop. Back then, Danny Boy was like 15 or 16 years old. Same age range as others being mentioned in these stories. Then it gets even crazier when more names get added. Allegations start stacking up, and the picture gets darker. He also claimed Jaden Smith, Will Smith's son, appeared in these videos, along with photos and footage of Diddy eating off young girls. When asked directly if there were images, he said yes. Mentioned Justin Bieber, Jaden Smith, and other young females. Said they were on tables, clearly young, while entertainment figures watched. That's when people really started paying attention. He even claimed he got calls from high-level people, trying to get those tapes out of his possession. And he told them straight up, I don't know what you're talking about. Now let's be real for a second. If this man testified in front of a grand jury, the feds had a reason to bring him in, period. So the big question becomes, does Diddy have a mole? Is someone in his inner circle cooperating quietly? Law enforcement folks say, without a doubt, that's how this works. They start talking about a former Syracuse basketball player, Jason Barnes, or Beard, already had drug charges on him before the raid. The same day Diddy's house gets raided, they grab him at the airport. That don't sound coincidental at all. Either they took him into custody to flip him, or they took him to protect him before something happened, especially if he was allegedly acting as a mule around that house. If the government already knew him for drug charges, that's exactly the kind of person they'd use as leverage. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Someone points out a video where Puff runs into Justin Bieber, and Puff starts tapping him down, almost like he's checking for a wire, like he's searching him, seeing if he got a device on him. Now ask yourself why that would even cross his mind. Did you see that clip? Yeah, people definitely saw it. So here's a theory that makes folks uncomfortable. What if the federal government already spoke to Justin Bieber? And what if Puff did that on camera because it slipped into his head? If that's the case, in his mind, Bieber might be a witness. And that changes how you see that entire interaction. Because fear makes people reveal more than words ever could. When you zoom out, the connection between 50 Cent, Diddy, and Bieber tells a bigger story. Power always concentrates at the top, while risk flows downward. Youth gets marketed as authenticity, access gets sold as mentorship, and silence gets rewarded as professionalism in the industry. This isn't about certainty, it's about patterns that keep repeating. And when the same system keeps producing damage, the system becomes a real suspect.